There we go.
Okay. Everybody here okay? If so, I will go ahead and get started. Yep, and press the OK to recording and lift out. There we go. Okay, well, I'm going to present today on the ESRI user conference that I attended earlier this summer in San Diego. So many folks may know that ESRI puts on the user conference to basically kind of show the latest and greatest of what's coming out from many types of technology, remote sensing, emergency services, GIS, tons of stuff. I mean, it's the San Diego Convention Center is they don't use the whole thing, but they use quite a bit of it, and there's just too much to be able to take in all at one time. So there's many different things that they go over. It's a super exciting conference. I have a slide coming up and to basically try and get people to go to it if you get a chance, but it's just a really good opportunity to learn what's new in the industry, to connect with ESRI folks. Because if there's very specific problems that you have a question on, many times these folks are the people that write the tools that you're using or help troubleshoot the tools that you're using. So you're able to talk with them directly and say, hey, can I get your card? And if I'm experiencing XYZ error and it's happening over and over, then you can talk with them directly and say, hey, nope. Hey, Jim, it's still happening. Or not, sorry, Jim, I didn't mean to, I just pulled the name out of the hat. Hey, person, it's still happening. So so it's a very worthwhile experience. So I wanted to include this slide just because I wanted to go, obviously, since I'm in the water planning division, I wanted to go with the water planning centric mindset, but I also wanted to go with the whole department in mind and see things that could be used on a department-wide basis, not just in the water planning division. So that was important to kind of pay attention, know things that floodplain is doing, the dam safety is doing, the water administration is doing, the groundwater is doing, be able to know, have an idea of if I see something cool, then I don't just say, well, that's not for water planning, so nope. So that was kind of the mindset that I wanted to go in with. So that being said, sorry, I paid a lot of attention to, and my presentation today will be a lot on image analysis and remote sensing and things like that. That's a lot of the sessions that I elected to go to because there's a lot of work that we're looking to pursue in water planning. But that being said, I did see some ideas and get some information and some thoughts about some other divisions other than just water planning as well. So I know this is just a recent development. I know what Brian Warner sent out a email yesterday that we will be moving, and earlier today as well, to the DNR-GIS listserv basically. So we will be moving to ArcGIS 3.0 because of a update pushed by OCIO to our Windows computers that kind of causes some heartburn between the two environments. So that being said, I'm very excited about that. I wish that would have happened a while ago, but that's neither here nor there. But there's a lot of different and improved functionality, a lot of different features, a lot of different kind of new stuff that's going to be in ArcGIS 3.0. And I encourage folks, I'll send this, I can send this, or I'll pass this presentation to Devin and it can be distributed. I don't want to just send it to everybody because that might just be like, who are you and why are you sending me this? So I'll send it to Devin. But that link that I have in the top part of this slide is just kind of a summation and a summary of what's new in 3.0. And I encourage folks just to spend maybe, if you do GIS and even on a semi-regular basis, just look to see what's new. Spend 10 minutes to see what's coming up, what's coming out, what some of the improved functionality is, because one of the things that you can see that I have that arrow to is the improved data display capabilities. So you can see that they have different ways to graph data that you can put, you can have temporal data displayed differently. There's lots of different, and this is one of many things coming out. So I just highlighted a few things that I thought were kind of cool. There's improved model builder functionality. So there's a way to incorporate different commands, incorporate different Python modules and things like that in there, and loads of imagery analysis, which, like I said, this presentation is going to focus heavily on. There's lots of improvements there as well. So like I said, I encourage you, if you get a chance, to take a look at that site. So like I said, I was going to give you a good reason to if nothing else, to go to beautiful downtown San Diego. It's a gorgeous facility for those of you who've been there, and for those of you who've been to the San Diego Convention Center. It's right near right in the heart of downtown, right near a lot of restaurants, right near Petco Park. It's gorgeous. It's very, very, very nice. I was there still on the tail end of some COVID stuff, so I didn't explore as much as I really would have liked to. But again, if you need any other excuse to go, that's taken with my phone, and that looks really nice, and it looks better in person. So it's a good chance to learn, and also a good chance to just kind of see pretty sights. So like I mentioned, going to focus on imagery things. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up, so what's new in some of the ESRI imagery and image analysis in general. Essentially, there's a whole heck of a lot new. Some of you may know that Landsat 9 was launched, I believe, earlier this year, and we are starting to get data in from Landsat 9. So Landsat 8 was the previous, was the predecessor of Landsat. Landsat 8 came before Landsat 9, believe it or not. And basically what Landsat 9 has is improved basically spatial resolution. So it collects different data, it collects a whole lot more data, and it does it at a more fine scale. So that is starting to become available on demand, where there's ESRI services that have that imagery that has the most up-to-date imagery all the time on a map, basically. So if you pull up the map, what you're looking at is different days of imagery, obviously, since the satellite picks up different times of imagery, but it's always the latest, the most up-to-date. So that's one of the cool services that ESRI is putting out there. You can see it has an 8-day revisit time, 1,400 scenes per day. So those of you who've used Landsat data, you know that the kind of scenes, the size that you talked about, 9 different bands. I didn't include a whole lot on that. You can Google Landsat 9 if you want to learn more about that, but there's a lot of improved functionality, et cetera, with Landsat 9. So Sentinel-2A, Sentinel is based out of Europe, basically. So Sentinel is Europe's Landsat, essentially. So they're analogous. Then there's also Sentinel-5P data, which was one of the highlights that came out at the ESRI conference. So that actually allows for atmospheric gas monitoring. So methane, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, things like that. So one of the things that was highlighted at the ESRI conference was that basically it was detected like the largest methane leak ever in China, and using the Sentinel 5P. So a number of nations went to I think it was China. China. It was detected somewhere. I don't remember if it was exactly China or Russia, but so it was detected, and they went to that country and essentially said, "Hey, what's going on here? Why is there a big methane leak?" And the government representative said, "There's definitely not." And they said, "No, there definitely is, because we're seeing it." So that's new technology that's available too. Very cool. So there's a number of different platforms, public, Landsat, Sentinel. There's others available, like I mentioned. There's also private, and that's where this kind of image comes in. So you can kind of see, this is a little hard to see on, I didn't make the image big enough, but there's hyperspectral, there's infrared, there's radio signals, there's all kinds of different private entities that are out there that if you pay them money, they'll get you data as well. So I think we use NAIP, we use a number of different imagery sources, and we don't have the specificity to say, hey, we want like 10 centimeter data for, anywhere specific. We do more statewide and countywide and things like that, but it's out there. And one of the cool things is I'm sure folks have heard about Elon Musk and the constellation of basically the constellation that provides internet to many different places right now. There's constellations of imagery satellites where basically they can say, we can get you the same location 10 times in a day, which before it's Landsat, if it passes it, it's gone. If it's in geosynchronous orbit, it can't just put on the brakes and go back and say, nope, I definitely need to look at that again. You have to wait till it comes around again. But now you can get the same place, same spatial location multiple times. So very cool. So how does this relate to DNR? So, and how can DNR access this data? So the Living Atlas within ArcGIS Pro provides access to this Content, basically, there's multiple temporal images. So like I mentioned, there's always the most up to date, but there's also archived information. This is done in both, data services and multispectral, meaning it's just a stacked image, which basically you can do data analysis on through time. Basically, it's just what multispectral means. Just think of it as a cube. You have one image and then another image and then another image, and you just stack them up, and then you can do basically analysis through time. So this is available on, like I mentioned, the Living Atlas and a number of other sites that you can search. I feels like you can search around and you can Google something, the same thing, 2 different weeks in a row, and you'll get many different sites. So it seems like things are popping up a lot. So this is a very fast developing field. So speaking of Living Atlas, where is the Living Atlas? How can I access this data, or how can you access this data from your desktop? How would you search for it if you wanted to see it? So the first thing is that you look for is that you need to do is basically sign in. So folks should have access to an ESRI account. When you sign in, it'll look something like this. Then you'd go to either the catalog view or catalog pane, and then eventually make it to either this catalog. So this is the catalog view, or excuse me, the catalog pane over here, and that circle right there is the Living Atlas, and over here is the Living Atlas as well. So once you get to that point, you can kind of just go and say, okay, I want to see Sentinel data. So you look up Sentinel right here in the search box, and then you can kind of see the results here. So a lot of different stuff coming in. Results can be overwhelming, and you can search for anything on here. You can search for soil type, you can search for a lot of stuff. It's important to look at layers that are authoritative, basically. So a lot of things that ESRI comes out with are authoritative, or like USDA or DOR, or things like that. But sometimes you get something that's like, hey, such and such a state agency, and it's like, sure, maybe, but it's important to kind of use discretion here. But that's how you search for it, and that's where you get Sentinel-2 imagery, and you could right-click it. That right here, you just right-click and say Add to Map, and then it'd pop up, and it'd be a new layer in your map. So pretty easy to do. And then, like I mentioned, there's a whole lot of different things once you do add that imagery into your map. So you can see a whole lot of predetermined kind of indices that are available. So those different bands that the satellites pick up can be used in different combinations with each other to give you different clues into kind of what's happening on the ground. So you can see up in the upper left-hand corner, you have the natural color. So that's what's going to be the that's what's, if you were looking down on Earth, that with just your eyes, that's what you'd see. Then some of the band combinations you can see over here that they're listed what they actually are. These, so the agriculture would be shortwave IR1, new IR blue. So these bands 11, 8, and 2 are combination are done in such a way that you can look over here and see an agricultural indice that basically the more rigorous green types, the green and yellow types are more rigorous vegetation, and the brownish types are not as vigorous. So you can kind of get an idea at a snapshot in time, and if you capture this through time, you can kind of make get, hey, how did the season look, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's also NDWI and DBI. So this is the water index. So I don't know if you can see too well, but you can see right here just fine. Water shows up as bright white. So if you're looking at when headwaters start flowing and you're looking at a temporal data, you can see, hey, water becomes available at this date where it wasn't available before. So it looks like this either, groundwater is starting to emerge or things like that. So there's a lot of different preset data that you have access to just by bringing in that data from the Living Atlas. So a lot of that is previously you had to do those band combinations and kind of look at things yourself and figure out, hey, okay, maybe this band and this band and this band in a certain combination would look at this, and cool, I have to do that myself. But now there's already it's pre-done for you, basically. So that's one of the cool things that it has developed recently. More DNR examples, drought planning. So some of that information can be overlaid with something like the U.S. Drought Monitor, and see how the relationship between maybe vegetation vigor and drought indices overlap through time. That'd be a cool thing to look at, and I haven't had time to look at that, but that's something I think we want to look at coming up. Like, it's been red here for super long. How does it, this color for super long, how has that affected how it looked in the past versus now? So then land use analysis, so you can get information like crop types, more frequent water supply modeling. So that means water planning can run its models basically with certified acres more often. And then real-time information for stakeholders. This can be done and put available on as often as the data is available up for people to use. So if there's something that, you speak with the stakeholder, they say, hey, we would like to use this indice as an indicator for, to see as soon as possible when maybe we're starting to go into a drought or we're emerging from a drought, then we could use these image services to put it up, and basically they could have a website where they could check it every day, and as often as the data becomes available, they can see it. So that's really cool too. So more examples, deep learning applications. So deep learning is really emerging and becoming super cool. It helps kind of categorize and quantify and do a whole lot of things like that with imagery. And we haven't started to scratch the surface here, but the technology is just starting to scratch the surface. So it's exciting to kind of get into that. What else? So water administration enforcement. So for example, if there was enforcement or someone, a user was they had to shut off for whatever reason, or DNR said they had to shut off for administrative reasons, but through time we continue to see the areas that should have been shut off continue to show vigor, and it looks like vegetation is still growing. Then that's a way to say, hey, that shouldn't be. It looks like and it hasn't rained in 10 days, like it hasn't rained, well, not 10 days, but but it hasn't rained in a long time. Then we can say, hey, that looks like it's getting water and it's not from precipitation. So this is one of those ways that imagery can be used there as well. So in addition, there's for building footprint extraction. This is just kind of a building footprint that was done by Microsoft a long time ago, but there's more methods now. And one of the cool things is this probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense down here right now, but those are pre-trained deep learning models. So instead of having to go in and provide the deep learning model information to make sure it knows what it's doing, you can say, hey, I already know I'm going to use Sentinel-9. So it says, hey, we know those bands. We understand how that works. We already have something pre-trained. So if you want to go look for, let's just make this up. Let's say you want to go look for cornfields. We already know what that looks like. You can just use what we already have, bring in an image and search it. So that's another really cool thing that's developed as well. So I apologize for how blurry this is. I took these pictures of the presentations on my phone at ESRI, and I of course I was like trying to listen and trying not to block the people behind me. So I went like, no, okay. But essentially what this slide goes into, and like the title says, does this all make more work for us? Is this just like great, this all sounds cool, but like this sounds like a third job or a fourth job that someone doesn't have time to do. Essentially what we can do is set up processes on ESRI servers and in the enterprise and in the cloud to be able to give it workflows that it will do this basically not even on our systems. It will do it in ESRI and it'll just spit out the results for us. So that's something that's really cool. We don't have to like download entire maps, as those of you who've done it, those are huge. We don't have to have that on our computers and then use our processing and say, hey, well, we'll see in 10 hours when that's done. We can leverage ESRI things that are out there already. So that's essentially the gist of this slide. So that's one thing that if we get it set up as often as the data comes in, we can say, yes, that's how often we'd like it. We have to pay for that, but that's the kind of availability that we have. So this just kind of goes into a little bit more, and this is a little bit more clear, but it kind of just shows same point. We have image hosting. We can do tiled imagery. So basically we can, there's many formats that we can put this out for our end users, and we can tailor it to them. It doesn't have to just come in one format and we say, well, if you don't like it, tough sledding. So, and then there's also the availability to do analysis on their end. So if we so desired, we could allow those indices that we kind of, or those bands that we talked about to kind of make those indices. we could allow them access to those if they wanted it, if we wanted and they wanted it, to kind of do analysis on their end too. Not necessarily that we would, but that's available. So this was just kind of, this is from a presentation that wasn't from ESRI, it was from, I forget, I think Planet Labs. So it was from the Planet Imagery folks. And this just basically sums up a lot of kind of where imagery is and where it's going and what the kind of things it can do. So you start at the bottom and you move your way up. So you start with your sensor data, and then you move to analysis ready data. So those are those indices type things that we were looking at. Then you look at, hey, how does that affect how roads, buildings, how does that affect soil? How does that affect bigger things broader than that? Then, okay, once we have that kind of insight, how do we manage our water? How do we manage our, how do we manage maybe if you're a farmer, how do you manage seed? How do you, can we get to a point where like I can look at something and say, this part of the field is drier than this part of the field, so I need to concentrate watering here. I know some of that stuff exists already, but it's another way to do that. And eventually you make it up to well, we don't make it to GDP estimates or anything like that, thank goodness. But commodity prices, things like that, that's where it can go. So just crazy how much stuff is happening in imagery analysis. So, like I mentioned, I didn't want to just be water planning centric. I wanted to think about some other things that were out there as well. And one of the new programs that's coming, well, not new, but improvements to program is to map to, I think it's map to drone, drone to map, there we go. So basically what this will allow you to do, some of the new software, you can see some of that information there, is you can plan your flight. You can plan your flight pattern for a drone flight before you even go out, and you can get like a whole bunch of GIS data before you even fly it, and then program that into your drone and it'll fly that, and it'll basically there's integration just between the data gathered from your drone and ESRI stuff, and it'll kind of mesh better together. So you can see things like if we did want to get some of that like 6 centimeter resolution for imagery, or for LiDAR, or for, if we wanted to get really specific, then we could plan something out and fly it and do it all ourselves, and then basically convert that to the data that we need and we can use readily. So what came to mind was dam safety for this, because there's a really cool and kind of almost scary virtual reality type things where they're mapping real places with drones in ESRI in an environment where you can put on goggles and you're there. You can fly through the city basically, and it's extremely high definition. So one of the good things about that is, and how this worked for dam safety is if you have that planned drone flight and you fly the same path every year and under relatively similar conditions, the software allows for very powerful change detection. So you could see if the front of the dam was moving, or there, if there's a cave, there's a cave in that you might not have seen with just your bare eyes, it will, like I said, there's just very powerful just change detection. Accuracy is getting off the charts, and it's like I said, scary. It was weird, because one of the exhibits always at ESRI is that they give you a goggle, goggles, and you can fly through places, and I didn't do it because the line was huge, but you could see what they were looking at. But it's just like, yeah, okay, that you are either Superman or Superwoman right now. So just to kind of sum up some of these as the ESRI products, the comprehensive imagery stuff that is new and that I took away from ESRI was that reality mapping, that 2 and 3D is coming out, very high resolution change analysis. Imagery analysis, big changes to classification, change detection, extraction, raster analytics, deep learning. There's the amount of training material that you need to put into a deep learning model if you make your own is reduced by like 90%, which is massive. So you don't have to like sit there and say, this is corn, this is soy, this is wheat, this is corn, this is soy, this is wheat, over like 10 hours for the model to say, yes, I'm very confident that this is corn, this is soy, and this is wheat. So that input is reduced. Visualization, we get tighter and tighter resolution spatially. And then management, this does not all have to exist on our computers, and that's huge. And this does not have to go through our processors, which is again, huge because we are limited there. And if we can pay for processing to happen on demand, and it happens a lot faster, and it's not in our building, but we just have to, then we get the product we want, and we just set up the workflow, and then all of a sudden, there it is. It appears on one of our live real-time data websites. That's great. Again, we have to pay for it, but it's still great. So additional ESRI imagery resources, Brian Warner, number one, bug him. The ESRI resources page, I included these links. Obviously, don't memorize these because hopefully this will get distributed out. ESRI Academy is something where training is available on not just the stuff that I've mentioned today, but broadly across ESRI. So Survey 123, Experience Builder, Story Maps, ArcGIS Pro, ArcMap, you name it. There's bajillions of courses there, both paid and free. I encourage you, if there's training you think you want or something you wish you knew better, I guarantee there's a training for it. So search there. And then this is additional forthcoming stuff. This is just I wanted to just include some links so people could just click around if they wanted to. Again, at the bottom is Googling. ESRI has so much stuff out there, so much stuff. They're not the only, obviously, GIS platform, but they're the one we use and we pay for, so we might as well use it. We have representatives that we can consult. But simply Googling things like what's new in ArcGIS Online, what's new in Experience Builder, or something specific. Generally, ESRI has great help documents for you. And also their blogs, which are mentioned here. Their blogs are a great way to stay up on top of just very briefly, what new is coming out. Like, hey, we just introduced this new thing. Like, oh, I would have never known about that, except you made a blog about it and cool, you give me an example and like you work through the example. So again, too much information out there than anyone can handle. They just publish a lot, but so if you need something, it's out there. So that all being said, okay, hopefully that wasn't too long, but yeah, ask any questions that you would like. I'm happy to talk. I'm more than happy. If you want to nerd out, believe me, just be prepared to walk away. But yeah, so this stuff is really cool. I'm happy to answer any questions, but yeah, thanks for listening.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, if you want to send me that and I can distribute it, just send me a WebEx and I'll just drag it up.
We will also be, hopefully this recorded okay, and we will be uploading it to the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So.
Sure. So if anybody thinks of anything, like I said, come bug me. Anybody has anything they want to talk over, like a concept, more than happy to chit chat. Like I said, not just water planning, anything. That's how a lot of stuff gets done, is you kind of have an idea and you talk with lots of other people and it eventually forms into really cool stuff. So.
And this is a conference that staff can go to.
Yes, this is, so that would be, so since we signed this is boring stuff, but since we signed a new end user license agreement with ESRI, it changes, it's statewide now, not just DNR. So that would be a question when the time comes. It's normally summertime, but when the time comes, bug Kim and Ryan, and they will tell you how many passes maybe DNR has. And we get certain amounts of complimentary ones. So there's an opportunity where we can go. There's still obviously expenses, but getting in is free, and that's a big hurdle too. So
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
One